Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a debate on the merits of a new law that greatly increases the amount of money that individuals and organizations can give to Arizona political candidates. A children's advocate will talk about why increased funding for CPS may not be enough to protect Arizona's children, and we'll look at a new poll that shows overwhelming support for solar power in Arizona. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Last week, the governor signed into law a bill that increases campaign contribution limits to Arizona political races. Joining us to speak against the new law is Sam Wersinski, Executive Director of the Arizona Advocacy Network, and here in support of higher campaign contribution limits is Stan Barnes, President of Copper State Consulting. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Let's start with you, Stan.
Okay.
I mean, this is a law now. Why is this a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing because the present system is horribly flawed, and this is a step in the right direction. It's allowing for reality. Reality is people have a First Amendment right to support candidates, and the artificial limits on that support forces money off to the side where it's less transparent and is less controlled by the candidate whose very message is dependent on his election. And so I count it good on a number of levels. I only wish they'd have gone farther with it.
Why is this not a good idea?
Well, the bill is focused on money, but it really is an attack on Arizona working voters, Ted. And it's not just this bill. There's a whole slew of them that are passing through this legislature this year. What this bill does is it shifts the focus even more so to big money special interest groups when the focus should be on our voters. And that's really what the 1998 Clean Elections Act was all about. It was kind of getting a handle on all the money being spent in the political game and having candidates look at who's actually going to be represented, the voters, and start engaging with them more rather than just focusing on donors.
How does this change that in a negative way?
Well, when candidates need to compete using money, they're going to be going after large sums, the large donors. And we see that already with the special interest groups. So the more money a particular special interest group can give, the more influence they're going to have at the Capitol, the more representation, quite honestly, they're going to have at the Capitol at the expense of working voters.
The idea that regular Joes and Janes just can't get this kind of influence and will increasingly not get this kind of influence. How do you respond?
Yeah, at one time when dinosaurs roamed the earth was a state legislator 25 years ago. Feels like a long time ago. And I know from firsthand experience that is not true. When what we call a real person shows up at the state capitol and says, I have a problem, Arizona is still a small enough state, and the people that serve down there are still not professional politicians, but laymen who have self-selected to be in the legislature and to put up with what you got to put up with to be down there. The person shows up there and wants their legislative attention, they got it. I'm telling you, that is a fact. When it comes to campaigns, if a candidate cannot raise money, then money will be raised around him and spent on him. John McComish, Senator McComish from Ahwatukee-Chandler area is a great example. He was constrained by artificial limits that are very, very low, and so money against him and for him went out into the darkness where it was not reported, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars bombarding him. He couldn't control his message. It was a bad situation. This will help remedy that.
I think Senator McComish did mention that this, I think his quote was, puts candidates themselves in charge.
Well, I think candidates have been in charge. I mean, Senator McComish was reelected. So what Stan is saying is that he was reelected based on independent expenditures and shell corporations messaging, that he really wasn't reelected because of his message. I mean, that's the point I take from there. But to Stan's first point about an ordinary citizen going down to the Capitol and being able to speak to their legislator and really having their voices heard, there were a handful of individuals and groups that signed in favor of this bill. There were hundreds of Arizona citizens emailing, calling, going down to the Capitol including myself, speaking with our senators and our lawmakers. And this bill still passed. 4 or 5 in favor of it, on the record, versus hundreds and hundreds of working Arizonans against it. Voters' voices are not being heard. Big money is drowning it out.
Respond, please.
Yeah, and it's just not a fact. The average legislator is a person of well-meaning, good nature who wants to hear from their constituency groups. If a special group, Sam's group, or any other group comes down there with their own political agenda and they're not heard, that's the nature of politics. But this idea of money in electoral politics, it is already there. This bill ought to bring that money into the light so it will be reported, you'll know who gave where, and the candidate who's dared to get into the arena actually can control his own message instead of it being done to him.
Was this an effort to undermine clean elections?
I don't know. The short answer is no. My hesitation is that there's a lot of reason to undermine clean elections, in my own humble opinion. It doesn't make Sam happy. But clean elections, I don't think is a good model for the state of Arizona, even though it's the law today.
If it does undermine clean elections, does it not violate? I mean, the clean elections was voter approved. Shouldn't there have been a 3/4 approval there in the legislature?
No, I don't know whether this should have been or not, but I do know that it will likely be litigated, and we'll find out whether or not it is or it is not violative of that proposition.
Is your argument not so much that money is a bad thing, but money from certain directions? We're talking about money here. Is money necessarily a bad thing in political campaigns?
Well, we're a capitalist society. I mean, an individual's worth is often measured by their wealth in our society. I mean, that's a fact. Money is essential in order for individuals and groups to get their message out to our large population. A big problem with this bill was how it came about. You know, they used a veterans bill as a Trojan horse to quietly get it into committee. You know, the longer you can keep stuff out of public eye, the better off you are moving it forward. So the other aspect of this bill is it wasn't comprehensive in nature. There's another bill, House Bill 2575, that had bipartisan support, privately funded, clean election candidate funded, veterans, freshman legislators signed on to this particular bill for a comprehensive approach to campaign finance changes. It never got a hearing. Instead, the county attorney for Maricopa County came in with this particular bill, got a sponsor to do a strike all, and moved it forward.
The idea, once again, I want to get back to clean elections. If we're talking about increasing limits, increasing caps, does this bill increase the spending, the caps, the limits on clean elections candidates?
No, it does not.
Why not?
It does not, and I think that would be a whole nother debate and a whole nother issue, and perhaps that's the litigation point. The clean elections model is antiquated. It was a good attempt to bring antimatter into matter, and they just can't be together. Your candidate's ability to raise money is an indication of that candidate's credibility. And I'm not talking about self-funding a campaign. I'm saying if you can't ask people for donations and they don't have the faith in you to give that money, then there's something wrong in that. If you can't do that, if you can do that from the left side of the spectrum or the right, then you've got something to offer. You're proving that you are somebody worth having trust in. The clean elections thing throws that all to the side and hands taxpayer money to any candidate who has a whim. I'm hoping someday we get rid of it.
Final word, please.
Yeah. Clean elections, we want to continue to work on it, strengthen it. I'm hoping that even before this legislature ends, that we see House Bill 2575 revived and parts of it pulled out as a voter voucher program that allows the voter to vet these candidates, not big money.
We got to stop you right there. Good discussion. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dan.
The governor is proposing nearly $78 million in new funding for child protective services, but that just begins to address the needs of Arizona children. That's according to our next guest, Dana Nehmark, President and CEO of Children's Action Alliance. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. So improving CPS, increasing staff, not enough?
Well, the governor's budget proposal is the bare minimum we need for basic child safety. And really what it does is keep up with the growth in demand. We've had a 33% increase in the number of reports of abuse and neglect, a 34% increase in the number of kids in foster care. We simply can't keep up with that without more resources.
So what do you want to see from the governor? What do you want to see from the legislature? It sounds like timely investigations are needed. Aren't these things improving? Obviously, they're not improving fast enough for most folks, but they are improving, are they not?
A lot is not improving, even though CPS is making changes in their systems. They're becoming more efficient. They're doing some things better. But because more and more kids are coming into the system, they can't keep up. And so we're not seeing the actual outcomes for kids improve until we get some more resources in there to complement the changes in the system.
Before we get to resources, what about caseloads? Is that not getting better?
Caseloads are double what they should be.
So it's not improving.
It's overwhelming, right.
And you're saying this money helps but not much?
This will keep us on the treadmill. And so we need this money as a bare minimum, and then we need to keep improving the systems, and we need to work on prevention because we have to help families become stronger so they don't need CPS.
Let's talk about some of the resources out there and some of the services. Parent support services, what are we talking about there?
Well, the governor's proposal is a $10 million increase, which is desperately needed. Parent support services are things like substance abuse treatment so that parents can reunify safely with their kids and they can become better parents, more responsible parents. Other kinds of counseling and coaching so that families can stay together safely.
Is this a $10.4 million, I believe, for services for families and kids in foster care or headed for foster care?
It's both, but it's primarily for families where the kids are in foster care, but we want to work to reunify the kids with their parents as much as we can.
We talked about caseloads, $9.6 million to meet the growth in caseloads. You're saying that's nowhere near enough, or?
Right. There's money in there for child care, which is for caseload growth in child care. And if we don't get that funding, we will actually be kicking kids out of the child care that they're in right now.
And the 200 more CPS caseworkers, which was kind of a headline-grabbing aspect of all this, encouraging slightly?
Well, it is. The state legislature this session, at the very beginning of the session, unanimously came together in a bipartisan way and approved 50 new staff with supplemental funding for this year. That was a great start to the session and a great indication of how important child safety is. But that's not enough. We need the other 150 staff just to keep up with the influx. Right now we have too many. We have thousands, 10,000s of cases that come in that are not investigated in a timely way because the staff is overwhelmed.
$34.5 million for kids in shelters, group homes, centers, and these sorts of things. And it seems to me like the goal, it would seem, is to keep these kids out of these places.
That is the goal. But right now, when we don't have alternatives and we're not set up to provide services and safety, foster care is a necessity. And it always will be a necessity for some kids. We definitely want to reduce the number in foster care, and we know we can do that going forward. And there's some legislation going through the legislature that will help us do that. But right now, we need the money to keep up with the very basic services.
So the bottom line here is that CPS, additional funding for everything from caseworkers to group homes and foster homes, it's good but not enough?
Correct. We are asking the legislature to look at the governor's budget proposal as the bare minimum. It's a $77 million proposal, and it is all vitally needed. And so we're really working on making sure every member of the legislature understands those needs and then can look at it and also ask what else can we do to improve child protection.
Do you think lawmakers don't understand those needs?
You know what? They're asking really good questions, so I'm very encouraged about that. They're very concerned about the growth in foster care, and they're asking how do we prevent this, how do we turn it around. They're also asking how do we know that when we invest in child protective services, we are improving child safety. So the dialogue is excellent. We want to make sure that stays on the radar screen as they begin negotiating the budget.
That's a good point. Is there a sense of accountability that can be perhaps forwarded or encouraged or enhanced out there to satisfy some lawmakers' concerns?
Absolutely. And with the supplemental funding, they required some new reporting from the Department of Economic Security. We're very much supportive of that and of making sure there is accountability and that we're all talking together about what are those benchmarks that we need to improve and how do we get there?
So last question. I'm a lawmaker. Are you telling me more CPS funding is needed or more services surrounding CPS funding is needed?
We need the governor's budget for CPS as a bare minimum, and then we need to talk about how do we help support families so they don't need CPS in the first place. I think that will be tough to do this legislative session. We're having those conversations to show lawmakers that they don't want to be in this position again next year with that huge growth in foster care, and we can help turn that around.
You encouraged?
I am, and we want to make sure the spotlight is on kids as they go into these negotiations.
Dana, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Tonight's Focus on Sustainability looks at a new poll that seems to show widespread support for solar power in Arizona and widespread opposition to elected officials that oppose solar development. Here to discuss the poll is Jason Rose of Rose Mosier Allen Public Relations and solar industry attorney Court Rich. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Jason, let's talk about what this poll was designed to look at. What did you look at? What did you find?
Well, the reason we're sitting here is because APS is proposing a very hostile move to essentially end rooftop solar in Arizona. And we're representing a group of rooftop solar companies, banks, consumers, and it's a new coalition called TUSC, Tell Utilities Solar Won't Be Killed, led by Barry Goldwater Jr. And we wanted to know in this poll where the public was at in terms of what APS was proposing. Did the public support it? And what we found was absolutely not. Manson getting out of prison may be a little more popular than what APS is proposing. And we sampled likely voters statewide and then oversampled Republicans. Why did we do that? Because the Corporation Commission is now all Republican. And frankly, solar has been seen as a Democratic issue in the past. But what we saw in the oversample of Republicans was widespread support for solar programs in Arizona and widespread opposition to the programs that APS is proposing.
And I want to crunch some numbers here in a second, but to the point of what utilities are doing, we've talked about this quite a bit on the program, but again, encapsulate for us what you're seeing out there as far as residential and commercial solar development.
Sure. Well, and one thing that's apparent is utilities are comfortable and they like their monopoly. And what they've done is they've come up with a strategy where they've tried to say, we want to take away the ability of consumers to choose how they get their electricity. APS, for one, has been no competition for 100 years. And if I'm a homeowner, until very recently, I could never do anything else except get my electricity from the government-regulated monopoly. But now I have a choice. I can go out, I can put solar panels on my roof, I can invest that money, and I can save money at the end of the day and exercise that choice. And certainly Arizonans like choice and personal freedom.
And real quickly, define net metering and how that factors into all this.
Sure. Net metering is a really successful policy that exists in 43 states. Net metering is simply we're forced to buy electricity from the utility at a certain price, and under the net metering policy, the utility is forced to buy electricity from solar panels that are on residential or commercial rooftops at that same price. It makes a lot of sense. If they want to sell the energy to you at a certain price, they should buy it from you at that same price.
We had Commissioner Gary Pierce on a while back when we were talking mostly about this. I want you to listen to what he had to say. He was concerned about performance-based subsidies because he says that basically those costs are adding up. Let's listen.
It's time for that subsidy on the performance-based incentive to go away, because that's a legacy cost. And the legacy cost means those performance-based incentives, they're performance-based. You get them once a year for 20 years. Well, we've built up in APS's territory $735 million of legacy costs, which will go on. I mean, people will say, well, there's no more incentives. Did my bill go down? No. We have created, through these rules, which were created in 2006, we've created a monster of additional charges that will have to be paid over the next 20 years.
Respond to that, please.
Sure. Here's what's great about the solar industry, and it's different than about APS and other monopolies. Solar industry is moving away from incentives. They're getting off incentives every day. In Arizona, by the end of the year, you'll likely have no incentives left for rooftop solar. At the same time, who's talking about APS's subsidies? How are they able to benefit from subsidies? And I think we need to look at that, because that's a big difference.
Jason, as far as the poll is concerned, what was asked? How was it, because this can be awfully complicated. How did you present the question, and what kind of responses did you get?
Well, again, with a poll, we wanted a Republican pollster with impeccable Republican credentials to do it, so it couldn't be construed or characterized as a lefty or a liberal poll. And we did that. We released the poll. It's on various websites. You can go get it. What we would say, Ted, is if anyone takes exception to the way that we worded these questions, challenge APS. Go out, do your own survey on solar issues, and see what they have to say. What they will find, specifically with Republicans, is this, is Republicans are flocking to energy choice similar to the way they have with school choice and health care choice. And I think that's a very important dynamic that we saw in these numbers. And hopefully our Republican commissioners will review that and appreciate that sentiment.
But, you know, I remember hosting a debate for the Arizona Corporation Commission, and it seemed as though the concept of solar was, as you mentioned earlier, much more of a Democratic issue, and there was much more skepticism, if not outright hostility, coming from the Republican side. When did all this change?
Well, I think there's a gradual evolution on this issue. And also, let's not forget, this is Arizona. This is not the state of Washington. The sun is a great strength. That's what Barry Goldwater said. Barry Goldwater says getting rid of solar in Arizona is not the Republican way. It's not the Arizona way. And I think we're going to continue to see some resilience in these numbers. And one of the key numbers in the poll was if an elected official is seen as ending the solar program, which is essentially what APS is trying to do in Arizona, the pollster called that, quote, political malpractice.
Why is APS doing this? I can understand protecting your own interests to a certain degree. This seems relatively radical. Am I missing something here?
I think what they see, like I mentioned earlier, is they're a monopoly. They don't like competition. And they've figured out that every time a consumer in Arizona puts solar panels on their roof, APS sells a little bit less electricity. And that just doesn't work for the monopoly that never had to deal with that before. And so that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to take away that choice and that option.
As far as the Arizona Corporation Commission, as it is so tabled here, are you seeing a predilection to go in that direction? Are you seeing more of this, what Jason's mentioning, this new Republican idea of choice in utility?
Well, we're in the middle of a process where they're reviewing this. Certainly the industry is disappointed that we're even talking about this. Why are we out there? Why aren't we talking about APS's subsidies? Why would we only look at an alleged subsidy to the solar industry when that industry is the one that's getting away from subsidies?
Last question, about 30 seconds left. What do we take from this poll?
We take from the poll that solar is the computer and that APS's monopoly is the typewriter. And elected officials, I think, would want to be on the side of the future in computers, not on the side of the old typewriter.
All right. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, time for another midweek legislative update with the Arizona Capital Times, and we'll speak with an immigration attorney about the U.S. Senate's new comprehensive immigration bill. It's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
The Global Institute of Sustainability is the heart of ASU's sustainability initiatives, advancing research, education, and business practices for an urbanized world. Sustainability tips found at sustainability.asu.edu/TV.